Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this channel. If this is your very first time here, I would really and humbly ask you to do the right thing and subscribe. If you are one of our very own Kingdom Couple family, thank you so much for coming back. And please do not forget to leave your comments and like this video if you find it valuable. Today we are going to be a bit emotional, and I really just wanted to share a bit of my pain and how I overcame my mother's death. Yeah, it was in 2000, and I think let me just start from the beginning, and so that you can be able to have a context. In 2002, I left the village. My mother and father were farmers, peasant farmers in a small village called Tulisha. It's a rural village. Around that time, it's a village where, we never even had sights of a car. If you hear a car passing by on the main road, which was around like 5 kilometers, you could literally hear a car move that far. We would run and go just to see the car, and of course by the time we arrived there, the car was gone. So 2002, I left the village. I ran away. My mother helped me escape. Of course, my dad would not have had allowed me to leave the village, because my family, a big family, a family of about 11, and at that particular moment it was only 2 boys. It was my elder brother, who's 12 years older than me, and then myself. So my father had the other boy in the city and the other boy in the village. So of course, he would not have just allowed us to leave him alone. But in 2002, actually, very long story. I think another part of that story I'll share it in another video. When my father went, my father did a lot of political work in the village. When he went out, my mother arranged that I get a car so that I can go to the city and join my elder brother. And the reason for that really is there's not so much I would have become if I remained in the village. So 2002, I left my mother. I was very, very young at that particular moment. But at the time where I left my mother, I already had had images of how they were really working hard, especially my mother, because my dad was always out. He was always in meetings, political meetings. My father, even up until now, he just loves traveling. He's board member of schools, board members of whatever. So he would be out for days and all that. So it's really my mother who used to remain home to take care of us, including in the rainy seasons when it was, planting time. She was always the person who was hands-on to ensure that, there is enough food for the family for the whole year. So I've had that picture of how hardworking my mother really was, and you could see that sometimes it was really, really too much for her. And then so I left and I went to the city, and of course I could go and visit and all those kind of things until 2007. 2007, I had really faced a lot of challenges because my elder brother that I had gone to stay with in the city moved to South Africa. So I was left in Zambia and in the city almost alone, and those are the moments where I didn't really had enough time to see my mother. And before I knew it, a trip was organized for me to come to South Africa, and I got on a bus to come to South Africa. I was still in school and I came here. It was supposed to just be for a holiday, and my big brother went. My big brother, who's my father, he took up the role of the father really because he raised me since I was very, very young. He decided, look, let's enroll you in a school here because I'm here and make sure that you get the best school. And that was 2007. Actually, no, 2008. 2008 February. So I think the last time I had seen my mother was late 2006. Yeah, I think late 2006. Came to South Africa and struggled to get myself documents so that I can just be legalized, so that I can find myself in a school and get education and all those kind of things. Used to talk to my mother via those telecom phones where you buy a 25 rand card. It was like 10, 25 and 50 rand cards, and you put them in. Used to really just communicate with my mother, and went through school, even got an internship in 2013. We were just talking, that's when I was planning to go and see my mother. I remember very well, 2 weeks before going back. Now that is 6 years of not seeing my mother at all. I saw my father earlier because my father, my big brother flew my brother in to South Africa. He came to visit, so I had interactions with my father. Yeah, but my mother, my younger sisters, it had been that long, 6 years. So I'm preparing, I've got my money set aside. And this other day, I remember we were talking on the phone, and my mother was saying to me, you need to come. When you come back. Now remember, this is a person who saw me 6 years back. And she didn't even know I had developed beards. I'm a man now. She's like, I'll put you on my back and I'll run around the yard with you. I miss you so much, my son, and all those kind of things. And it was just a beautiful emotional chat. And I remember when I was in grade 4, I promised her that I'll buy her an African attire for her to dress up when going to church. My mother was a very committed SDA Dorcas church, and she was so much involved in these women gatherings at church. So we had that kind of a relationship with my mother, and I feel to some extent that a lot of my motivation came from really looking out for my mother. A lot of my motivation came out because I saw how she worked so hard for us to have food, for us to have everything that we needed. So it was just like a push to say, if I can just start a business in that village for my mother, if I can just, or even just build a house in the city and take my mother away from the village. In my subconscious, all my hard work was so much driven because of that. And I can really guarantee that 70% of my ambitions, my passion, the age and the need to be able to wake up and do something for myself was coming from that part. I remember making a vow in 2005 that I will never touch alcohol, I will never smoke, I will never indulge in sex prematurely, because I knew that these things would destroy and derail me from the purpose and what I'm working on, and from the goal of ensuring that I become a success and just make my mother proud. I think that had always been the case with me. I had built personal values and an entire character based on, I really just want to make my mother proud. And 2013, really, I was seeing the light. I saw that, okay, I'm going to visit my mother for the first time. I'm not going to go empty-handed. I'll go with a few monies to say, Mom, start whatever you can do. I'll go with a phone for the first time. I say, here's a phone from your son. So, that kind of drive. And just before 2013, I remember when we were talking, she's like, oh, come and see me. Do you want, she said something like, do you want to see me when I'm in a coffin? And at that particular moment, it was just, no, ma'am, you're not going to die until I see you, and all those kind of things. 2 weeks before flying to get to Zambia to see my mother, She fell ill. They took her to the hospital. I was talking to the nurses on the phone. How is Mama? No, she's fine. She's getting through the day. She's fine. Of course, no. And I remember at that particular moment I was writing my exams. So I'm like, okay, immediately after writing my exams, I should be able to go see her. And I remember speaking to her on this other day in the morning, speaking to Dad. I spoke to her. She was in a hospital and she's like, no, I'm coming out soon. I can't wait to see you. And that very same evening around 8 o'clock, I received a call that my mom had passed on. And look, it just felt like the entire world just shut. It shut down for me. I couldn't be able to think through. It was just like somebody told me something and it's a dream. You know when you wake up from a very bad dream and then you've got these emotions, the aftertaste of a bad dream. I think for me that's how it felt like, you know. I couldn't, you know, at that moment I was not able to differentiate whether I was at work or I was yet asleep. But I think the feeling that I feel every time I think of that very hour, I remember it was about 8 p.m. The feeling was I had lost the motivation, the inspiration, that drive. I could literally feel it just vanished with a call, you know. And it took about 30 minutes for me to be able to realize, oh, actually I got a call. From the call I got, this is the message, this is what happened. It was painful. One of the things that helped was, so I had to cancel with all the exams and everything, and you know, the preparation for us to fly to Zambia began. You know, I remember I was in Standard 10 in Mpumalanga and I had to drive to Pretoria, and it was just during those moments where, you know, I was at that particular moment, really I wasn't like I'm flying to go to a funeral. I was still trying to find out what is happening, because the incidents just happened too quick. I think too quick, that I couldn't put my mind on what was happening around me. And you know, we made arrangements to get to Zambia the next day. And the thing is, with Zambia, it's very different from South Africa, where in South Africa, you know, funerals are usually done on weekends. You know, if a person passes on a Thursday, you know that the funeral will take place the other weekend and not immediately. In Zambia, the person passes on today, whether it's during the week or whatever, you know, they give you a day or two in between, and then it's burial. So I think, yeah, it happened on a Monday night. That was 8. I think it was 8 p.m. on a Monday. On Tuesday, we had to make arrangements to get to Zambia. On a Wednesday, we were in Zambia, and then, you know, we were in the capital city, Lusaka. So we had to make arrangements now to go to Southern Province, where that's my mother's family, where they were, and that's where her body was. You know, so everything was happening like that, and you know, you're in the presence of people. Now remember, I've not been in Zambia for 6 years already, so I'm meeting new people, but now I'm meeting these people under these circumstances where, you know, where you meet people and you're like, Axel, you've grown, but it's not Axel, you've grown high and you're laughing, it's crying, you know, everyone is crying around. So you are from this place and you get into a situation where there's just so much negative emotions. It crippled me even worse, you know, because I mean, it's weird. You see people and you don't know, you can't celebrate that you are seeing people after a long time. You have to cry together. Yeah, and I remember, big brother, my dad, my big brother, who's my dad, you know, I had a car in Zambia because we were both still here. He was still living in South Africa. So I had a car and we had to drive. I remember on our way, the car broke down. We were like around about maybe 25 kilometers away from the funeral house. The car just decided to break, and it was just another emotional roller coaster then, and the burial is taking place tomorrow. Whether you are there or you are not there, the burial will take place. I remember just having a very emotional moment with my brother, where he was like, okay, no, it's fine, because if we get transport now, it's in the night, you have to go there, and he had to remain, I have to go there. At least, he's like, no, at least I saw mom some time back when I was in Zambia. It's been long since you saw. At least you need to go there so that you can be able to just have that last moment where you can be able to see her, and we hustled with transport until we managed. We arrived. I remember arriving at the funeral house at around midnight. When I arrived there, my two younger sisters came. They were rushing. Now these are people. My younger sisters, when I left, they were so young, and they came to me and very emotional. I remember in that year, our last born was writing her matric, her grade 12 exam, which is her matric. And she comes crying to me, and all I could hear her was, big brother, with so much that mom has done for us, she couldn't even wait for me to finish writing my exams. At least she would have gone knowing that I passed. I wrote my exams and I passed. And now you can imagine, I'm in a trance where I'm really just, my mind is trying to get, to gather together what's really happening, around me. I remember when I saw that I think that's the moment where I realized this is real. And my entire mind came back and I had to know, okay, this is really happening and it's real. I just lost control. I remember I lost all power. It's like I almost passed out, but I had like people who were holding me. So they literally held me and they were lifting me. I couldn't be able to walk. And I think that is when everything became a reality. It's pain unexplainable. I think it's that kind of a pain that you can never be able to fabricate unless you're into it. And for me, it was worse because there was a bit of, I always say, I think if you watch some of my videos, I always say to you, I don't like blaming an environment, blaming circumstances, blaming life. I always look for ways to look at what would I have done better. And maybe I shouldn't have stayed for that exam. Maybe I should have just left. Maybe I shouldn't have listened to the people when they said your mom is not feeling well. Maybe I should have just left everything and go. Maybe I should just have called her, booked her on a flight and say come, and maybe the medical services in another country would have helped better. Maybe I should have had a more sense of agency when I was told she's not feeling well, and I didn't. Or maybe the day when we were laughing and joking some few months back, and when she was saying, you're fine when you come, do you want to come and see me in a casket? Maybe I should have taken that so seriously. Maybe I should have read the signs. It was just that moment where, besides the pain of losing a mother, there was a bit of beating yourself up and thinking maybe I should have done better. And the next day, it was burial day. We drove. They had allowed me to view the body. I think that was the last blow. I think then it hit me cold because I saw there's my mother laying. Then I was expecting a hug when I get to see my mother after a long time. She couldn't be able to hug me. I was expecting maybe a homemade meal. She was not in a state that she could make a homemade meal. We expect so much love from a mother, after not seeing her for a long time, and she wasn't in that state. Instead, there was a body that was cold and that was lifeless. A body that couldn't say hi and couldn't greet you.